They all thought Olivia Reed was at home crying. In reality, she was buying a $10,000 dress and hiring the best private investigator in Sydney. The young woman in the scarlet red dress, clinging to Liam Parker's arm at the Grand Hyatt Sydney, didn't know three crucial things. First, that Olivia had orchestrated every single detail to ensure she was there that night. Second, that the flash drive in Olivia's Hermes bag contained photos of Jessica with two other married men in the last 6 months. And third, and most importantly, that in 30 minutes, Jessica would leave that charity ball in tears like a child, while Olivia would become a legend the Sydney High Society would be talking about for the next 50 years. Liam thought he was trading a boring wife for a luxury plaything. Jessica thought she was winning a fairy tale prince. Neither of them had any idea they had just awoken a queen. And queens don't forgive, they destroy with style. The September night at the Grand Hyatt Sydney was thick with ostentation and deceit. Baccarat crystal chandeliers cast a golden glow over the main ballroom, where the crème de la crème of Sydney's society gathered for the annual Hope Foundation charity ball. The air conditioning kept the room at a perfect temperature, in stark contrast to the suffocating heat of hypocrisy that hung among the guests. Liam Parker adjusted the cuff of his Italian silk shirt for the third time in 5 minutes. At 38, the real estate mogul had built an empire that guaranteed him a constant presence in the social columns. But tonight, he felt particularly anxious. Not because of the event's importance, after all he had attended dozens of similar balls, but because of the company he had chosen to bring. Jessica Evans glided through the ballroom as if she owned the place. At 29, the young woman flaunted an artificial but striking beauty. Her platinum blonde hair fell in perfect waves over her bare shoulders, accentuated by a scarlet red Valentino dress that Liam had bought especially for the occasion. The generous neckline and the fabric that hugged every curve of her body did not go unnoticed by the male gazes or the whispered comments of the socialite ladies. "Liam, darling!" The shrill voice of Fiona Harrison, wife of a federal senator, cut through the air like a knife. "What a surprise to see you here! And with company." Her eyes travelled over Jessica from top to bottom, a predatory analysis disguised as social politeness. "Fiona, always a pleasure." Liam forced a smile as he felt small beads of sweat form on his forehead. "This is Jessica Evans, my special consultant." Jessica laughed, a crystalline sound that echoed through the room. "Consultant? How modest, my love." Her blood-red nails caressed Liam's arm possessively. "We're much more intimate than that, aren't we?" Liam's discomfort was palpable, but Jessica seemed to feed on the situation. She had spent months planning this moment, the night she would finally be introduced to society as Liam Parker's new woman. In her young, ambitious mind, this was her official coronation. His legitimate wife, Olivia, had become a ghost-like figure in their conversations, a woman who preferred discretion to the limelight, and that to Jessica was a sign of weakness. "Where is Mrs. Parker?" Fiona's question was asked with the surgical precision of someone who knows exactly where to poke to cause pain. "I haven't seen her at any social events in a while." Liam swallowed hard. "Olivia has been busy with personal projects." "What a shame," Fiona murmured, though her tone suggested the exact opposite. "She was such an elegant woman. She always knew how to behave with class." The word "was" hung in the air like a death sentence. Jessica felt a pang of irritation. Why did everyone keep comparing her to that boring woman? Liam had told her that Olivia was dull, unadventurous, a wife who was content to stay at home reading books instead of accompanying him to important events. For Jessica, that only proved that some women were born to shine, while others were born to disappear. "Liam, I need to talk to you about the Marina project," interrupted David Williams, one of the company's minor partners. The relief on Liam's face was instantaneous. While the men moved away to discuss business, Jessica remained alone in the center of the ballroom, feeling like a queen on her throne. The flashes of social photographers found her constantly, and she knew her photos would be splashed across the gossip magazines the following week. Liam Parker's new flame, the businessman with a stunning companion. She could already imagine the headlines. The champagne flowed freely among the guests, and Jessica did not hold back. With every sip, she felt more confident, more in control of the situation. She approached a group of socialites she knew superficially from the salons and gyms of the eastern suburbs. "Jessica, what a stunning dress," commented Sophie Miller, a magistrate's wife. "Valentino?" "A gift from Liam," Jessica replied, emphasizing the intimacy. "He has exquisite taste in women's clothing." The women exchanged knowing glances. They all knew what that meant. Liam Parker was publicly flaunting his mistress, a behavior that, while not uncommon in these circles, still caused a stir when done so blatantly. "So, how are you adapting to your new position?" Sophie's question had a double meaning, and they all laughed discreetly. "Perfectly," Jessica replied, raising her chin. "I've always felt more comfortable in this environment than certain people who isolate themselves at home." The malicious comment about Olivia did not go unnoticed. The women present knew the unwritten code of high society well. When a wife stopped appearing at events, it usually meant she had lost the battle to a younger, more ambitious rival. Across the room, Liam tried to focus on the business conversation, but his eyes constantly wandered to Jessica. Part of him felt proud to be with a woman so young and attractive. It was a confirmation of his virility and success. Another part, however, began to question the wisdom of so openly exposing his extramarital affair. "She's a looker," David commented, following Liam's gaze. "But don't you think it's risky bringing the friend to an event of this caliber?" "Jessica isn't just a friend," Liam retorted, more defensively than he intended. "We have a serious relationship." "Serious?" David raised an eyebrow. "And your wife knows about this?" Liam looked away. Olivia knew, of course. How could she not? The rumors had been circulating for months, and he didn't even bother to be discreet. But Olivia, true to her reserved nature, had not made a scene or any threats. She had simply become even more reclusive, which Liam interpreted as a tacit acceptance of the new situation. "Olivia understands that our marriage has evolved into something different," he mumbled, sipping his scotch. In reality, Liam had married Olivia Reed 15 years ago for practical reasons. She came from a traditional family with important connections in the judiciary and politics, connections that were crucial for the growth of his business. Olivia was smart, cultured, a perfect wife on paper. But as the years went by, Liam began to see her as part of the furniture, always there, always reliable, but without the sparkle and excitement he had started to seek elsewhere. Jessica represented everything his wife was not: spontaneous, sensual, impressionable. When he met her at a law firm party where she worked as a receptionist, he was immediately attracted to her youth and her hunger for social climbing. It was easy to impress her with expensive dinners and lavish gifts. It was easy to be the hero in the life of someone who came from a two-bedroom apartment in Blacktown. "Liam!" Jessica's voice called him back to the present. She was approaching with a radiant smile, followed by a man younger than him, whom he recognized as Finn O'Connell, heir to one of the country's largest fortunes. Finn was just telling me about the new art collection he recently acquired, Jessica said, her eyes gleaming with interest. Picassos, Van Goghs. It's fascinating. Liam felt a pang of irritation. Jessica was clearly flirting, and Finn, known for his reputation as a ladies' man, seemed eager to reciprocate. It was humiliating to have to compete for his own mistress's attention in public. Jessica, we need to talk to the event organizers, he interrupted, grabbing her arm. But, Liam, Finn was inviting me to see his private gallery, she pouted. Another time, Liam replied curtly, guiding her away from the young heir. As they walked through the ballroom, Jessica murmured in his ear, You don't need to be jealous, honey. You know you're the only man in my life. The words should have reassured him, but Liam felt a growing unease. There was something about Jessica's attitude tonight, an excessive confidence, a presumption that her place was guaranteed, that deeply bothered him. Near the main table, where the event organizers and some important politicians were gathered, Liam spotted Marcus Black, an influential social journalist. The man was watching them with obvious interest, already mentally drafting the article that would appear in the column the next day. Liam Parker, long time no see. Marcus approached with a smile that didn't reach his eyes. And this beautiful young lady must be Mrs. Parker. The silence that followed was deafening. Liam felt his face flush, while Jessica, far from feeling uncomfortable, smiled even more widely. Not yet, she replied with a giggle. But who knows, maybe soon. The insinuation was crystal clear. Jessica wasn't content with just being the mistress. She had bigger plans, and she was announcing those plans to one of the most dangerous gossips in the city. Liam forced a nervous laugh. Marcus, this is Jessica Evans. Jessica, Marcus is one of the most respected journalists in Sydney. It's a huge pleasure, Marcus said, kissing Jessica's hand with exaggerated gallantry. I imagine we'll have much to talk about in the coming times. The veiled threat was not lost on Liam. Marcus Black had the power to make or break reputations with a single column. If he decided to turn the situation into a scandal, the consequences could be devastating, not just for his public image, but for his business. As they talked, the ballroom continued to fill up. Influential politicians greeted businessmen, socialites showed off their latest jewelry and couture, and the orchestra played classic waltzes that created a perfect soundtrack for this theatre of appearances. Jessica was in her element. She greeted acquaintances, posed for photos, and chatted with important people as if she were, in fact, Mrs. Parker. Her every gesture was calculated to solidify her position, to make it clear that she was not just a fleeting affair, but the new reality in Liam's life. But in the back of her ambitious mind, Jessica couldn't completely ignore the whispers she heard when she passed. Where is Olivia Reed? What an awkward situation. Poor Olivia, she was always such a distinguished lady. Why did everyone insist on talking about that woman? Jessica had never met her in person. Liam always said that Olivia preferred to avoid conflict and confrontation. For her, that only confirmed her superiority. While Olivia was hiding at home, she was shining in the high society ballrooms. What Jessica didn't know was that at that exact moment, just a few blocks away, Olivia Reed was meticulously preparing for her own entrance at the Grand Hyatt Sydney. And when she arrived, nothing would ever be the same again. Do you think a person can be completely betrayed and still manage to win? What would you do in a situation like this? Leave your opinion in the comments below. Olivia Reed stood in front of the full-length mirror in her walk-in wardrobe, observing her own image with the cold, analytical detachment of a general planning a battle. At 35, she possessed a mature and sophisticated beauty, that contrasted dramatically with her rival's youthful and obvious appeal. Her dark brown hair fell in soft waves to her shoulders, framing a face with classic features that didn't need heavy makeup to make an impact. The dress she had chosen for the night was a masterpiece of French haute couture, an impeccable black Chanel with pearl details that ran along the discreet yet elegant neckline. The piece had cost more than many cars, but it wasn't the price that made it special. It was what it represented. Power, class, legitimacy, everything that Jessica Evans was trying to buy with money borrowed from another woman's husband. Liz knew exactly what was happening at the Grand Hyatt Sydney at that moment. She had received no less than 15 calls from worried friends throughout the week, each of them eager to be the first to tell her about the public humiliation Liam was inflicting on her. What none of them knew was that Olivia had orchestrated every detail of this situation. "Ma'am, the car is here," announced Marie, her housekeeper of over a decade, appearing at the wardrobe door. The middle-aged woman looked at Olivia with equal parts admiration and concern. "Are you sure you want to do this?" Olivia smiled, the first genuine smile she had shown in months. "I've never been more certain of anything in my life, Marie." The truth was that Olivia had discovered Liam's betrayal long before any social gossip. Not because she was particularly perceptive, but because Liam was embarrassingly careless. Receipts for expensive dinners for two when he was supposedly in business meetings, charges for jewelry, and dresses on his corporate card. A woman's perfume on his clothes that was definitely not hers. For the first few months, Olivia had felt the familiar pain of betrayal, the bruised ego, the feeling of inadequacy, the questioning of where she had failed as a wife. But then, on a particularly melancholy Tuesday afternoon, something changed. She was looking through a wedding photo album when she came across a picture of herself on their wedding day. In that photo, she radiated a light that had been lost over the years of their marriage. It was in that moment that Olivia understood a liberating truth. She hadn't lost Liam to Jessica because she had failed as a wife. She had lost Liam because he had failed as a man. From that epiphany, Olivia began to plan. Not a vulgar, emotional revenge, but a cold, surgical strategy that would not only expose the couple's farce, but also guarantee her the freedom she had unconsciously desired for years. Over the next 6 months, Olivia watched. She discreetly hired a private investigator, not to confirm the betrayal she already knew about, but to meticulously document it. Photographs, videos, hotel records, even recordings of compromising conversations that Liam and Jessica held in public places, believing they were safe in the bubble of arrogance they had created. More importantly, Olivia used that time to reorganize her finances. Liam had always assumed she was financially dependent on him, a sexist and ignorant assumption. In reality, Olivia had inherited a considerable fortune from her paternal grandmother, investments in real estate and stocks that she managed personally without involving her husband. In addition, she had her own art consulting business that generated much more than Liam could have ever imagined. During her months of absence from social events, Olivia had also dedicated herself to herself in a way she hadn't in years. A personal trainer 3 times a week, regular aesthetic treatments, a complete wardrobe overhaul. Not to win Liam back. That bridge had been irreversibly burned, but for herself. That specific night, Olivia had chosen the Hope Foundation charity ball for precise strategic reasons. It was an event that brought together the core of Sydney's elite, people who had known her family for decades and who respected her lineage and class. It was also an environment where unwritten social rules worked in her favor. As much as they tolerated male excesses in private, The public exposure of a marital betrayal was still seen as a tasteless act that had to be punished. More crucially, Olivia knew Liam would bring Jessica to the ball. It was she herself who, through a mutual friend, had planted the idea in the ambitious young mistress's head. "The Hope Foundation Ball is the most important event of the year," she had strategically commented during a lunch. "It's where society truly shows itself." Olivia's private driver, Rob, was waiting for her at the building's entrance. He was a discreet and loyal man who had worked for the Reed family for nearly 20 years. He knew all the secrets, all the nuances of Olivia's life, and his discretion was absolute. "Good evening, Mrs. Parker," he greeted her, opening the door of the black Mercedes-Benz S-Class. "You look radiant tonight." "Thank you, Rob." To the Grand Hyatt, Sydney. During the 30-minute drive, Olivia mentally went over every detail of her plan. She had timed her arrival for the exact moment the ball was at its peak, when all the important guests were already present, when the social photographers were most active, when Liam and Jessica were at their most relaxed and confident. Olivia's phone vibrated with a message from Genevieve Moore, a magistrate's wife and one of her oldest friends. "My love, they are making a shameful display of themselves. She's practically announcing herself as your replacement. Come soon and put an end to this farce." Olivia smiled as she read the message. Genevieve had always been her fiercest ally, a woman of the old guard who firmly believed that certain traditions and social hierarchies had to be respected. To Genevieve, Jessica was nothing more than a classless social climber, trying to occupy a place that didn't belong to her. Other messages followed, all from outraged friends recounting Liam and Jessica's behavior. "She's wearing a red Valentino, completely inappropriate for a charity event," wrote Sophie Miller. "He introduced her as a special consultant, but she corrected him by saying they were much more intimate," added Fiona Harrison. Each message confirmed that Olivia's plan was working perfectly. Liam and Jessica were digging their own graves with an almost comical relish. Olivia thought about her life with Liam during the first years of their marriage. She had genuinely tried to be a good wife, supporting him in business, accompanying him to social events, keeping the house immaculate, being the perfect partner for every occasion. But Liam always seemed to see her as an expensive, well-behaved accessory, not as a true partner. As the years passed, she realized that Liam had chosen her not for love, but for social convenience. She brought respectability, family connections, and an image of an ideal wife that complemented his business ambitions. In return, he offered her financial security and social status, a commercial transaction disguised as romance. Olivia's awakening to this reality was gradual but irreversible. She began to notice how Liam ignored her during conversations at social events, how he interrupted her when she expressed opinions, how he assumed his own decisions were automatically correct without consulting her perspective. Small humiliations that accumulated over the years to form an unbearable weight. When she discovered the betrayal, Olivia initially felt devastated. But as she watched Liam's behavior with Jessica, the way he melted at her feigned naivete, how important he felt mentoring the ambitious young woman, she realized that she hadn't lost a true love. She had been freed from a burden. "We're arriving, Mrs. Parker," Rob announced, interrupting her reflections. Olivia looked out the window and saw the golden lights of the Grand Hyatt, Sydney, shining in the night. Dozens of luxury cars were parked at the entrance, while paparazzi and social photographers awaited the arrival of important personalities. The red carpets stretched from the pavement to the main door, bordered by lush floral arrangements. "Rob, give me 5 more minutes," Olivia requested. "I want my entrance to be memorable." She opened her Hermes bag and checked the contents one last time. In addition to the usual items, lipstick, compact powder, wallet, there was a discreet USB stick containing all the documents and evidence she had collected on Liam and Jessica. She didn't plan to use it tonight, but it was always good to have an ace up her sleeve. Olivia also carried something much more powerful than any physical evidence, the absolute certainty that she was doing the right thing. For 15 years she had been the perfect, discreet wife who solved problems without making waves. Tonight, she would be the exact opposite. Her phone vibrated one more time. It was a message from Marcus Black, the social journalist. "Olivia, darling, I hear you're coming to the ball. How wonderful. I've missed your elegance at these events. See you inside." Perfect! Marcus was clearly setting the stage for an epic confrontation between wife and mistress. Like all good gossip journalists, he could smell the drama in the air, and he wanted to make sure he had a front row seat when everything exploded. "Now, Rob, it's showtime." The driver smiled in the rearview mirror. He had watched Olivia grow from a timid young woman into a powerful one, and he knew that tonight would be historic. When the Mercedes stopped in front of the Grand Hyatt Sydney, a murmur spread among the photographers. Olivia Reed had become a mysterious figure in recent months. Her absence from social events had generated speculation and conspiracy theories. Now, her reappearance promised answers. Rob got out of the car and walked calmly to the back door. The silence was almost palpable. Even the most experienced paparazzi knew they were about to witness something extraordinary. When the door opened and Olivia stepped onto the red carpet, there was a moment of suspended time. She was radiant in a way no one remembered seeing her before. More confident, more imposing, more genuinely powerful. The flashes went off in a frantic sequence as Olivia walked slowly towards the entrance. Every step was calculated, every movement a statement. She greeted the photographers with graceful gestures, but did not stop for interviews. There was more important work to be done. At the club entrance, the doorman received her with an almost feudal bow. "Mrs. Parker, what an honor to have you back with us." "The pleasure is all mine, Robert. A beautiful night, isn't it?" As she walked through the club's corridors towards the main ballroom, Olivia could hear the murmur of the crowd inside. Music, laughter, lively conversations, the sound of people who had no idea their lives were about to be turned upside down. She stopped in front of the ballroom's double doors, adjusted her pearl necklace one last time, and took a deep breath. On the other side of those doors were Liam and Jessica, probably still reveling in the attention they were receiving, still believing they had conquered something important. They had no idea that the real queen had arrived to claim her throne. The Grand Hyatt Sydney ballroom was in full swing when Olivia Reed made her entrance. The orchestra was playing a Strauss waltz. Couples danced elegantly in the center of the room, and the buzz of conversations created a symphony of well-behaved civility. The crystal chandeliers cast golden light on the evening gowns and impeccable tuxedos, creating an atmosphere of refined opulence. Liam was near the bar, laughing loudly at a joke David Williams had just told, when the first whisper reached his ears. Olivia arrived. The smile froze on his face. He turned slowly, searching the crowd for his wife's familiar figure, but failed to locate her. A part of his brain still hoped it was a rumor that someone had mistaken a brunette in a black dress for Olivia. "Liam!" Genevieve Moore's voice sounded behind him like the harbinger of a storm. "Your wife looks stunning tonight." He turned and saw Genevieve with a smile that didn't reach her eyes. The kind of smile that women of high society use when they are about to witness the public humiliation of someone they consider deserving. It was then that he saw her. Olivia was entering the main ballroom with the serenity of a queen returning to her palace after a long exile. There was something different about her, an aura of power and self-confidence that Liam did not remember ever seeing before. The black Chanel dress hugged her silhouette with mathematical elegance. The pearls at her neck caught the light in a hypnotic way, and her brown hair shone like polished silk. But the most impressive thing was her posture. Olivia didn't walk, she glided. Every movement was deliberate, every gesture calculated for maximum impact. And wherever she went, conversations ceased, heads turned, and a respectful silence spread like ripples on a lake. Liam felt his mouth go dry. In 15 years of marriage, he had never seen Olivia command a room like that. It was as if she had transformed from a supporting character into the lead in her own life. Across the room, Jessica was telling an anecdote to a group of businessmen's wives when she noticed her audience had become distracted. They were all staring intently at something or someone behind her. "What's going on?" she asked, turning to follow the direction of their gazes. And then she saw her too. Jessica had imagined many times what her first encounter with Liam's legitimate wife would be like. In her fantasies, Olivia would be a boring woman, visibly aged, clearly inferior in every way that mattered. The reality was a brutal shock. The woman walking towards her radiated a natural elegance that no amount of money could buy. There was something almost aristocratic about her posture, an innate class that suddenly made Jessica feel like a child playing dress-up in her mother's clothes. Olivia greeted the guests with the perfect grace of someone who was born for this world. A kiss on Fiona Harrison's cheek, a warm handshake with the federal senator, a kind word for the magistrate's wife. Each interaction reaffirmed her position in the social hierarchy, not as the betrayed wife seeking sympathy, but as the great lady returning to her rightful place. "Olivia, darling!" Sophie Miller's voice cut through the air like a crystal bell. The magistrate's wife approached with open arms, clearly thrilled to see her friend after months of absence. "What a joy to have you back! I've missed you so much!" The hug between the two women was warm and genuine, in stark contrast to the artificial displays of affection that characterized most of the interactions in that environment. Jessica watched the scene with growing discomfort, realizing for the first time that Olivia was not just Liam's wife. She was a respected and beloved figure in her own right in this society. "Sophie, you're radiant as ever," Olivia replied, her melodious voice carrying a tone of genuine affection. "How are you, Robert? I heard the nomination for the Supreme Court was confirmed." Yes, we're very happy. But tell me about you. Where have you been hiding all these months? We missed you so much." Olivia smiled with a mysterious elegance. "I've been taking care of some personal matters. Sometimes a woman needs time to reorganize her priorities." The answer was diplomatically vague, but loaded with undertones that were not lost on the women present. They all knew about the situation with Liam and Jessica, and now they were beginning to understand that Olivia's absence from social events had not been due to humiliation or despair, but to strategy. While Olivia talked, Liam remained paralyzed near the bar. Part of him wanted to approach, greet her as if nothing had changed, and maintain the facade of a harmonious marriage they had always presented in public. Another part, the cowardly and guilty part, just wanted to disappear. The decision was made by Jessica. The young woman, driven by a toxic mixture of jealousy, insecurity, and youthful arrogance, decided that she would not be overshadowed by an older woman, no matter how elegant she was. After all, she was the one with Liam now. She was the one wearing the expensive gifts, the one occupying his bed, the one with plans for a future with him. "Liam," she whispered, pulling him by the arm, "let's go and greet your wife. It's the polite thing to do." Liam swallowed hard. "Jessica, Maybe now isn't the best time." "Nonsense," she replied, already walking towards the group around Olivia. "We're all civilized adults here." Jessica didn't realize she was about to make the most catastrophic mistake of her young life. In her limited mind, this would be the moment of her official coronation, when she would introduce herself as Liam's new woman in front of his previous wife, permanently establishing the new hierarchical order. Olivia saw the couple's approach long before they got close. Her eyes met Liam's for a brief moment, and he visibly cringed under her gaze. It was as if she could see right through him, perceiving all the guilt, all the discomfort, all the cowardice he carried. Olivia forced a smile as he reached the group. His voice came out higher than he intended. What a surprise to see you here." The silence that followed was deafening. All the nearby conversations ceased. All eyes turned to the trio, and even the orchestra seemed to lower its volume, as if the musicians also wanted to hear what would happen next. Olivia looked at Liam for a long moment, her expression perfectly serene. When she finally spoke, her voice had the cutting coldness of tempered steel. "Liam, what an interesting coincidence." She paused, a calculated move, allowing his discomfort to intensify. "I thought you were in Melbourne this week. An important meeting with investors, wasn't that what you said?" The lie was exposed with surgical elegance. Liam had invented that excuse to explain his absence from home in recent days, when he was actually in a luxury hotel with Jessica, preparing for the ball. Now, confronted with his own dishonesty in public, he stammered, The meeting was cancelled at the last minute." "What a shame," Olivia murmured, her tone suggesting the exact opposite. "Well, at least you didn't miss such an important event as this one." It was then that Jessica decided to intervene. The young woman, misinterpreting the moment and thinking that Olivia was being submissive by not confronting the situation directly, stepped forward with a smile that was meant to be friendly, but came across as condescending. "You must be Olivia," she said, extending a hand with perfectly manicured red nails. "I'm Jessica Evans. I've heard so much about you." The group around them collectively held their breath. It was a moment of palpable tension. Even the most distant guests began to discreetly approach, sensing that something extraordinary was about to happen. Olivia looked at Jessica's outstretched hand for a moment that seemed to last forever. Then, with a smile that didn't reach her eyes, she delicately shook it. "Jessica? Yes, I've heard a lot about you too." The phrase was uttered with such elegance that it took a few seconds for Jessica to perceive the venom contained within it. "Liam told me you work together," Olivia continued, her voice maintaining the perfectly polite tone of high society. "Something about consulting on project development?" Liam opened his mouth to reply, but Jessica interrupted him, clearly anxious to establish her true position. "Oh, we're much more than work colleagues," she giggled, a high-pitched sound that resonated uncomfortably in the silence of the ballroom. "In fact, Liam and I have a very special relationship." The words came out of her mouth with the confidence of someone who believed she was revealing a truth that would give her power over the situation. Instead, she had just fallen into the most elegant trap ever set at a Sydney social event. Olivia tilted her head slightly, as if she were processing some particularly interesting information. "Ah, I see," she said, her voice still holding that deadly courtesy. "How brave of you to make it public like this." The word brave was pronounced in such a way that it sounded exactly like its opposite. Jessica was beginning to realize that something was wrong, but her youth and inexperience didn't allow her to fully decode the nuances of the conversation. Liam, on the other hand, was as pale as a sheet. He knew Olivia well enough to recognize the danger signs, the overly polite tone, the smile that wasn't reflected in her eyes, the upright and controlled posture. She was furious. but expressing that fury through the refined codes of high society, which made her infinitely more dangerous than any emotional outburst. "Olivia," he tried to intervene, "maybe we should—" "Oh, Liam," she interrupted softly. "There's no need for discomfort among civilized people." She turned to Jessica with renewed interest. "Tell me, darling, how long have you two been working together?" Jessica, misinterpreting the question as an opportunity to establish her supremacy, replied with youthful pride. "About 8 months. Liam has been a wonderful mentor." "Mentor?" Olivia repeated, as if savouring the word. What an interesting term to describe the relationship. The air in the ballroom was so charged with tension that even the waiters had stopped circulating with the champagne trays. Dozens of eyes were fixed on the trio, and Marcus Black, the social journalist, watched everything from a strategic distance, clearly taking mental notes for his column the next day. "Olivia, darling," Genevieve Moore's voice sounded behind him like the harbinger of a storm. "What a stunning dress! Chanel, isn't it? I've always envied your impeccable taste in fashion." "Thank you, Genevieve. You know how it is. Some pieces never go out of style, do they?" The implication was clear. True elegance is timeless, unlike the passing fashion displayed by certain younger people. Jessica, finally beginning to realize she was being subtly attacked, decided to fight back. "Your dress is also beautiful," she said to Olivia, her tone trying to sound generous but failing miserably. "Very classic. Must have been terribly expensive." The comment was a grotesque mistake. To suggest that Olivia cared about the price of clothes, or worse, that she needed to justify her spending, was a display of classlessness that made several women present gasp in shock. Olivia smiled, this time a truly dangerous smile. "Darling," she said, her voice as soft as velvet but as sharp as a razor. "When one truly has class, the price becomes irrelevant. It's something you're either born with or never acquire." The phrase fell on Jessica like a silent bomb. For a moment, the young woman was speechless, slowly processing the fact that she had been publicly outclassed in the most elegant way possible. Liam tried to intervene again, his voice desperate. "Well, I think we should all—" "Liam," Olivia interrupted him again, this time turning to him with her full attention. "Since we're all here, gathered in such a casual way, maybe it's a good time to clarify a few things." The entire ballroom seemed to have gone quiet. Even the orchestra had stopped playing, as if the musicians also wanted to hear what would happen next. "Clarifications are always welcome," murmured Genevieve Moore, barely able to contain her excitement. Olivia adjusted her pearls with deliberately slow movements, like a matador preparing for the final thrust. "You see," she said, her voice now holding a tone of genuine amusement, "there are certain illusions that need to be put to rest before they cause more discomfort than they already have." Jessica felt a chill of panic run down her spine. "I don't understand," Jessica stammered. "Oh, darling," Olivia replied, her smile now genuinely radiant. "You will understand. All of you will understand." And it was then that Olivia Reed began to methodically, elegantly, and irreversibly destroy the lives of everyone who had underestimated her power. "Liam," Olivia said, her voice cutting through the silence of the ballroom like glass against glass. "Since we're among friends, why don't you tell Jessica about our conversation last night?" Liam's face paled to a colour that rivaled the pearls on his wife's neck. His eyes widened in absolute panic because he hadn't had a conversation with Olivia last night. I don't know what you're talking about," he stammered. Olivia tilted her head with feigned curiosity. You don't? How strange. Maybe my memory is failing me. Or perhaps you forgot to mention to your mentor that we are still married. The word mentor was pronounced with such irony that several people had to stifle nervous giggles. Jessica felt the blood rush to her face, finally understanding that she was being publicly ridiculed. Of course we know you're married, Jessica said, trying to regain some control. But marriages evolve, don't they? Sometimes people find happiness in different places. Ah, yes, Olivia agreed with a graceful nod. Evolution, a fascinating concept. She turned to Genevieve with a conspiratorial air. Elaine, you've been married to Robert for 30 years. Have you experienced that kind of evolution? Elaine laughed, a crystalline sound filled with aristocratic malice. Robert knows his place very well. The comment was a direct jab at Liam's masculinity. Traditions can be outdated, Jessica said, trying to sound sophisticated. The modern world allows people to be more authentic in their relationships. The silence that followed was profound. Olivia watched Jessica for a long moment. Authenticity, she repeated slowly. You're right, darling. Authenticity is fundamental. Which is precisely why I think it's time to be completely authentic about this situation. Liam tried to intervene desperately. Olivia, maybe now isn't the place. Oh, but it's exactly the right place, she interrupted him. After all, this is where you chose to make your association public. It's only fair to clarify a few details for our dear friends. You see, Olivia continued, addressing the audience directly, dear Jessica believes she won my husband's heart through her youth and authenticity. What she doesn't know is that Liam has a very specific pattern when it comes to his extramarital adventures. Olivia listed the characteristics with the precision of a scientist. Young, ambitious women from humble origins who are easily dazzled by expensive gifts and promises of social climbing. In the last 15 years, there have been at least, 6 of them. The number fell on Jessica like a hammer. She wasn't special. She was just the latest in a long line. But the thing is, Olivia continued, you made one mistake none of the others made. You believed you had won. Jessica looked around, seeing pity mixed with aristocratic contempt. Liam never told me about the others. Of course he didn't tell you, Olivia said softly. Why would he? That would ruin the fantasy he creates for each of you. And what place is that? Jessica finally exploded. The place of the submissive wife who accepts everything in silence? Olivia smiled, a genuine, almost amused smile. Oh, my sweet girl, she said. You really don't understand, do you? I didn't come here to fight for Liam. I came to give him back to you. The silence was absolute. Give back? Jessica repeated, confused. Yes, darling, you can have him. Olivia opened her Hermes bag and took out a sealed envelope. The divorce papers were filed yesterday. You should receive the official notification on Monday. The envelope passed from hand to hand. Liam held it with trembling fingers. But we didn't even talk about this. We did talk about it. For 8 months, Liam, every time you came home with another woman's perfume, every time you lied, every time you treated me like furniture. His question revealed his true character. How much do you want? I don't want your money, darling. I have my own. My grandmother's inheritance is worth more than your company. Besides, my art consulting business grew quite a bit. So you're giving us your blessing? Jessica stammered. It's more like returning a defective product to the store. The phrase echoed like a gunshot. You can't humiliate me like this, Liam finally exploded. I did nothing but tell the truth. If the truth is humiliating, maybe the problem isn't with me. Carlos Black approached. Liz, can I have a statement for my column? You can say that I'm starting a new chapter in my life. I'm moving to Paris next week. I have some interesting projects waiting for me there. The word Paris fell on Liam like a final sentence. Jessica, attempting a last desperate move, said, "At least now Liam and I can be happy together." Olivia looked at her with pity and amusement. Do you really think a man who betrayed his wife with you won't betray you with someone else? The truth of the statement hit Jessica like a punch. She looked at Liam, who was in total panic. "Liam?" she whispered. He didn't reply. "Well," Olivia said, adjusting the pearls at her neck with an elegant and definitive movement, "it's been a pleasure to clear all this up. Now, if you'll excuse me, I need to say goodbye to some dear friends before my trip." She turned to leave, but stopped. "Oh, and Jessica?" The young woman looked up hopefully. "The red dress is beautiful on you, but for charity events, more sober colors are more appropriate. It's a matter of social etiquette." The final critique was delivered with such elegance that even the most experienced observers needed a few seconds to process the brutality. Olivia had just given a lesson in etiquette in the middle of a public humiliation. Chloe stood still, paralyzed by shame, while Olivia gracefully walked away. Liam remained by her side, but it was obvious he was in shock. Carlos Black watched with the sharp gaze of someone who had just witnessed the social story of the year. He was already drafting the headline, "The Elegant Revenge." As Olivia circulated the ballroom, each conversation reaffirmed her position as the true winner of the night. She was going to Paris to be an art consultant for a prestigious gallery. The owner, Pierre Dubois, an aristocratic widower, was enchanted by her expertise and elegance. She was leaving behind the man who had lost everything due to his own incompetence. "You are simply inspiring," Fiona Harrison told her. "To transform betrayal into liberation, humiliation into triumph, it's a work of art." Across the ballroom, Jessica finally moved, like a sleepwalker waking from a nightmare. She looked around and realized she was the center of a very different kind of attention. Not admiration, but pity, mixed with malice. She was publicly unmasked as a naive and inadequate pretender. She had gambled on a man who was not even half the prize she had imagined. "My only comment," she said to Marcus Black, "is that some life lessons are too expensive to be worth it." With those words, Jessica left the room, leaving Liam alone with the weight of his own choices. 3 years later. Paris. The apartment in the chic 6th arrondissement had a view of the Eiffel Tower. Olivia Dubois was sitting on the terrace, drinking coffee while watching her 2-year-old twins, Henry and Bethany, play in the private garden. Pierre Dubois entered, carrying a tray with fresh croissants and the morning newspaper. "Mon amour," he said, gently kissing Olivia's forehead. "There's an interesting article here about Australia." "What kind of article?" "About business bankruptcies. It seems a construction company called Parker Ventures went under last month." "Liam?" "Apparently. The article mentions financial mismanagement and lawsuits. The owner, Liam Parker, is being investigated for fiscal irregularities." Olivia felt no pleasure in the news. That phase of her life was completely over. But there was a certain poetic justice in the fact that Liam, who had always considered himself her financial superior, had lost everything due to his own incompetence. "And the young woman who was with him that night at the Grand Hyatt, Sydney?" Pierre asked. "Jessica?" Olivia thought for a moment. "I heard she married a dentist in Melbourne. She apparently learned her lesson about not betting on losing horses." Pierre laughed. "You are terrible, ma chérie. But justice poétique, as we say. As she watched the children play in the Parisian garden, Olivia reflected on that night at the Grand Hyatt Sydney 3 years ago. She had planned every detail of that public humiliation, but she now realized that the real victory hadn't been in destroying Liam and Jessica that night. The real victory was this: a life built on her own terms, with a man who loved her completely, children who filled her heart, and a career that fulfilled her soul. In the end, Olivia Reed had discovered that the best revenge is not the destruction of your enemies, but the construction of a life so spectacular that it makes everything they did to try and diminish you irrelevant. Do you think a person can be utterly betrayed and still manage to win in the end? What would you do in a situation like this? Let us know in the comments below, and don't forget to like this video and subscribe to the channel.